It's just amazing. And this is like a spin-off. Phew. It's just unheard of.
In 1975, the Jeffersons burst onto American television as a bold leap forward, a black family leaving their old neighborhood behind, moving into a luxury apartment in Manhattan, and moving on up into the fabric of pop culture history. Across 11 seasons and 253 episodes, audiences laughed along with the hot-tempered George Jefferson, the calm and grounded Louise, the sharp-witted Florence, and the trailblazing Willis couple who defied racial stereotypes. But few know that behind the roaring laughter lay a vault of untold secrets, silent tensions, real-life stories of the cast, and surprising revelations about how the show was brought to life. Have you ever wondered what really happened when the cameras stopped rolling? Join us as we uncover behind-the-scenes mysteries never revealed before. And don't forget to follow the channel, so you won't miss a single step in exploring the untold stories of television legends. Moving on up with the Jeffersons, an American cultural phenomenon. On a January evening in 1975, millions of American viewers turned on their TVs and witnessed something unprecedented. A black family, George and Louise Jefferson, no longer confined to a cramped apartment in Queens, but stepping into a luxurious Manhattan penthouse. The upbeat tune of Movin' On Up rang out, not just introducing a new sitcom, but marking a new chapter in American television history. At a time when the small screen was still dominated by white middle-class imagery, the Jeffersons made a bold statement. Black families had just as much right to wealth, laughter, and everyday complexity. What began as a spin-off from All in the Family quickly became a powerhouse in its own right. Over 11 seasons and 253 episodes, The Jeffersons etched its name into history as the longest-running sitcom with a predominantly black cast during the 1970s and 1980s. But it wasn't just about the numbers, it was about impact. Isabel Sanford, who portrayed the ever-composed Louise "Wheezy" Jefferson, made history as the first black woman to win an Emmy for a lead role. Sherman Hemsley's portrayal of George Jefferson, quick-witted, hot-headed, but deeply lovable, became iconic for an entire generation of American viewers. What set the Jeffersons apart wasn't just its humor. Each episode offered a glimpse into the life of a black family, breaking societal barriers and claiming a place in the upper class. George Jefferson, a successful dry-cleaning entrepreneur, was no longer a side character from All in the Family, but a bold representation of the American dream through a black lens. The show dared to tackle sensitive topics for its time: racism, interracial marriage, class divides, and the biases black people faced as they moved up in society. Its success reverberated throughout pop culture. The theme song "Movin' On Up", written by Jeanette Dubois, became an anthem of pride for the black community. The hilarious back and forths between George and the ever-sassy maid Florence, played by Marla Gibbs, became legendary, quoted and reenacted for decades. And the couple, Helen and Tom Willis, black and white, became the first interracial marriage portrayed regularly in a primetime sitcom, breaking barriers in broadcast television. But the brilliance of the Jeffersons only made the behind-the-scenes stories more fascinating. Sherman Hemsley was famously private, so much so that even his co-stars were shocked when he revealed his passion for progressive rock music. Isabel Sanford often recalled that many of her most famous lines were improvised on set, and Marla Gibbs once admitted that during her first 2 years playing Florence, she kept her job at United Airlines just in case the show got canceled. The Jeffersons is not just a cultural treasure, it's also a vault of secrets that few audiences have ever known. Beneath the laugh tracks and one-liners, the actors brought their own private journeys to the screen, many of which stood in stark contrast to the characters they played. And that's what made the Jeffersons' journey upstairs not just a scripted storyline, but a mirror reflecting the complexities of a transformative era. Could what happened off-camera be even more surprising than what was written in the scripts? Stay with us as we dive deeper into the secrets revealed by the Jeffersons, cast themselves stories that even the most loyal fans may have never heard in over 40 years. George in real life wasn't like George on screen. Sherman Hemsley. Colleagues who worked with Sherman Hemsley often said he rarely joined cast parties, kept conversations short, and would quietly disappear the moment his scenes were done. He preferred a quiet, private life, so much so that fans were often stunned to learn that the man who made America laugh every Saturday night wanted nothing more than to retreat into his small home, far from the glare of media and celebrity. His professional secrets only added to the intrigue. Norman Lear, the legendary creator behind numerous hit sitcoms, insisted on keeping the role of George Jefferson reserved for Hemsley for 2 years, while the actor completed a Broadway contract. Lear once shared that he couldn't find anyone else with the same fire to play George. When Hemsley finally arrived, he brought with him a fierce and unmistakable energy, but he was also the first to speak up when he found offensive content in the script. Hemsley notably fought to remove the word honky from the dialogue, believing that laughter shouldn't come at the expense of insult. That choice, little known to many, helped keep the Jeffersons from veering into tastelessness during an era of highly sensitive racial dynamics. Off-screen, Hemsley held a surprising passion for progressive rock. While audiences were used to seeing him groove to funk and soul on the show in real life, he was a die-hard fan of bands like Yes and Gentle Giant. At times, he even brought rock music to the set, dancing to it while waiting to film. Colleagues recalled that the famous George Jefferson strut wasn't always scripted. It was sometimes inspired by Hemsley's own dance moves to prog rock. This unusual blend between his personal musical taste and his loud on-screen persona became a key ingredient in creating an unforgettable, one-of-a-kind character. His personal life was even more layered in mystery. Throughout his lifetime, Hemsley never married and had no children. He never spoke publicly about romantic relationships, despite ongoing media curiosity. After his death in 2012, speculation around his sexuality resurfaced, but Hemsley had never confirmed or denied anything. He chose complete privacy, in stark contrast to the brash, attention-seeking George Jefferson. What stood out most was that Hemsley never saw himself as a television star. He once admitted that Hollywood's spotlight made him feel suffocated. He disliked parties, had no interest in fame, and avoided any invasion into his personal life. Many colleagues described him as distant, but also as a serious, dedicated actor who always prioritized his character over personal gain. This contrast between the commanding George Jefferson on screen and the humble Sherman Hemsley off it only deepened public fascination. Perhaps it was exactly that contrast that made his performance so convincing and legendary. George Jefferson wasn't just comic relief, he was a symbol of Black ambition, a man asserting his place in a rigidly stratified society. Meanwhile, Sherman Hemsley was proof of the complex, often unseen lives of those behind the camera, a gifted actor steadfast in his craft, but someone who deliberately kept the spotlight at bay. And maybe it was this very withdrawal from public life that allowed him the clarity and focus to fully inhabit the role that defined his career. Wheezy wasn't in the script, Isabel Sanford. If Sherman Hemsley's George Jefferson was a blazing fire, then Louise Wheezy Jefferson was the gentle wind that kept the household balanced. Yet few people realize that the woman who created the iconic character of Wheezy, Isabel Sanford, had to wait until the age of 58 to finally be recognized by the American public. In an industry that often favors youth and beauty, Sanford became living proof that talent and perseverance can take a lifetime to reach their rightful spotlight. The name Wheezy might sound like a carefully scripted touch, but it was actually a happy accident. During a rehearsal, Hemsley accidentally shortened Louise to Wheezy, prompting laughter from the entire set. To everyone's surprise, Norman Lear and the writers decided to keep it, and from then on, the nickname became inseparably linked with Sanford's character. Isabel later admitted that the nickname didn't just make Louise feel more relatable, it helped transform her into a beloved TV mom for millions of viewers. But Isabel Sanford was far more than just maternal charm. In 1981, she made history as the first Black woman to win an Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. It wasn't just a personal triumph, it was a landmark moment for Black artists in Hollywood, where lead roles for Black women were so rare they could be counted on one hand. Sanford often said that the award was the nod I'd been waiting for since she was a little girl in Harlem, dreaming of becoming an actress. Even more compelling were Sanford's behind-the-scenes revelations that brought Wheezy to life in new ways. She often shared that her real-life relationship with Sherman Hemsley was eerily similar to their on-screen dynamic, full of bickering, teasing, and occasional tension followed by reconciliation. At times, Sanford even admitted she viewed Hemsley as a stubborn son, despite being less than 20 years apart in age. Their arguments over delivery, over who got more spotlight in a scene, became an unexpected fuel for the on-screen chemistry that audiences adored. Sanford also revealed a lesser-known truth: she harbored deep reservations about Hollywood. Coming from a working-class background, she had taken on numerous minor roles before landing the Jeffersons. That history gave her a grounded perspective. After rising to fame, she avoided the glitz and glamour, often turning down lavish events to spend time with close friends and family. Whether intentional or not, this quality made Louise Jefferson feel even more authentic to viewers. A woman who was strong, yet tender, steady enough to stand beside George without ever being overshadowed. Film by day, airline by night, Marla Gibbs. The role of Florence Johnston, the sharp-tongued housekeeper known for her witty banter with George Jefferson, was originally written as a minor character. But thanks to Marla Gibbs's charm and razor-sharp improvisation, Florence became one of the most unforgettable figures in 1970s-80s American sitcoms. What few knew at the time was that Gibbs had to live a double life to hold on to that role. By day, she stood under the bright lights on set. By night, she quietly worked as an employee at United Airlines. For years, she kept her airline job a secret, even from those on set, because Gibbs herself didn't trust that Hollywood would offer her long-term stability. "I needed to keep my job for the free airline tickets, just in case it all ended," she once recalled. That cautious mindset made Marla a living symbol of the tough reality faced by black actors no one ever knew, when the spotlight might suddenly go dark. But Florence helped her win over the hearts of the public. Many of the legendary verbal duels between Gibbs and Sherman Hemsley weren't even in the script, they were improvised live on set. Audiences loved watching Florence put George in his place with wit and sass, and the writers quickly realized they had to give the character more screen time. What began as a forgettable side role grew into a vibrant part of the Jeffersons, with fans eagerly awaiting every scene she appeared in. Gibbs's popularity grew so rapidly that CBS gave Florence her own spin-off, Checking In, 1981. But the dream was short-lived. The series only aired 4 episodes before being canceled. Gibbs returned to the Jeffersons, and that brief detour only deepened viewers' affection for Florence, now seen as an irreplaceable part of the Jefferson household. Beyond acting, Marla Gibbs also pursued music and entrepreneurship. She opened a jazz club in Los Angeles, released an album, and performed at numerous community events. This side of her was rarely publicized, as audiences were so used to seeing the no-nonsense Florence that they often forgot Gibbs was also a singer and bold businesswoman. Marla once said that Florence was a voice for black domestic workers, those who rarely had a platform in society, but knew everything going on inside the homes they served. Perhaps that's why Florence, brought to life with Gibbs' signature sarcasm and grace, became a one-of-a-kind figure in American sitcom history. In 2021, at the age of 90, Marla Gibbs received a long-overdue star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame recognition that came late but was richly deserved. Real-life love convinced the producers, Roxy Roker and Franklin Cover. While Marla Gibbs brought audiences roaring laughter through her sharp-witted humor, Roxy Roker and Franklin Cover delivered a quieter yet seismic shock to American television history. When Helen and Tom Willis, a mixed-race couple, began appearing regularly during CBS's primetime slot, America was forced to confront its own prejudices. But few know that in order for this groundbreaking couple to make it to the screen, Roxy Roker had to present her own marriage as living proof. In a meeting with Norman Lear, Roker showed a photo of her real-life family herself, a black woman happily married to her white husband, along with their young son, Lenny Kravitz. It was her way of proving that interracial marriage wasn't just a progressive fantasy, but a real and thriving reality in America. That personal story convinced Lear that the audience could indeed embrace the on-screen pairing of Helen and Tom Willis. And they did. The couple became a powerful symbol, paving the way for many interracial characters that followed on American television. Franklin Cover, who played Tom Willis, added his own layer of quiet contrast behind the scenes. Far from living the luxurious life of his on-screen millionaire persona, Cover rode the bus to set each day. There were even occasions when Roker had to give him a lift to the studio. Gentle and unassuming, he surprised colleagues with how convincingly he played a husband unshaken by George Jefferson's fiery temper. One little-known behind-the-scenes detail reveals how intentional the cast was. In shaping the show's tone, early scripts had George Jefferson referring to Tom and Helen with the term zebra, a racially loaded nickname. But the actors discussed and pushed back, transforming such language into sharp satire instead of cheap insults. Roker once shared that it was the solidarity among the cast that allowed the Jeffersons to walk a delicate line, pushing boundaries without losing integrity. The Willis couple weren't just decorative side characters to the Jefferson household. They were a bold statement that pushed American television to embrace more diverse and honest portrayals. And in this case, it was a real-life love story, Roker's own marriage, that became the catalyst allowing fiction to transcend the script and leave behind a lasting cultural legacy. Lionel had two faces, Mike Evans and Damon Evans. Among the Jeffersons' many behind-the-scenes secrets, the story of Lionel Jefferson stands out as one of the most surprising. Not because Lionel was less beloved by fans, but because the familiar face on screen was actually shaped by two very different actors, both named Evans, yet completely unrelated. Mike Evans, the first to portray Lionel, joined the show almost by chance. In his early 20s, when Norman Lear spotted him, Evans had a youthful energy, clever, a little rebellious, that made him the perfect fit to play George and Louise's only son. His Lionel was witty, quick with a comeback, especially in his verbal jousts with Archie Bunker in All in the Family. He became a familiar and beloved presence. But few knew that Evans was also the co-creator of Good Times, another iconic sitcom. His decision to focus on that project led him to leave the Jeffersons, leaving a noticeable gap in the storyline. Enter Damon Evans, who brought a very different presence to the role. Trained in opera, Damon infused the character with a gentler, more lyrical quality that shifted Lionel's tone considerably. Outside the sitcom world, Damon Evans came out as gay, during a time when doing so posed serious risks to an acting career. He even recalled being attacked by an audience member while performing opera, an experience both painful and powerful, highlighting the courage it took to live authentically. Fans quickly noticed the contrast between the two Lionels, one sharp and direct, the other more reserved and introspective. The difference sparked debate, but it also gave the show something rare, a single character interpreted through two distinct artistic lenses. Mike Evans eventually returned to the role in the final seasons, closing Lionel's arc while Damon moved on to pursue music and teaching. Together, they left behind a Lionel Jefferson who was anything but simple. Through their stories, Lionel became more than the Jeffersons' son. He became a mirror for personal choice career paths and the evolving identity of Black America in a changing cultural landscape. Jenny stepped away for family, Berlinda Tolbert. While debates swirled around the dual portrayals of Lionel, the story of Jenny Willis, daughter of Tom and Helen, offered a quieter but equally poignant perspective. Berlinda Tolbert, who played Jenny, was recognized for her talent from early on. Before joining the Jeffersons, she had already appeared in Mean Streets 1973, a Martin Scorsese classic still revered in American cinema. In The Jeffersons, Jenny served a vital role, the bridge between two families and Lionel's partner. Symbolically, she represented the first child of an interracial marriage to appear regularly in a primetime sitcom. But behind the screen, Tolbert made a choice that few knew about. She stepped back from acting to care for her aging parents. In rare interviews, Tolbert explained that she didn't want to be swept up in Hollywood's demanding pace. For her family meant more than fame, and being present for her parents in their later years was a responsibility she couldn't ignore. Many in the industry regretted her departure, seeing her as a natural talent with screen presence and subtle emotional range. Ironically, that very withdrawal gave the character of Jenny an enduring legacy. Untouched by later, less impactful roles, Jenny remained in viewers' memories as the gentle, steadfast daughter-in-law who defied social norms to build a life with Lionel. And Berlinda Tolbert, though absent from the spotlight, quietly left her mark on the hearts of fans, a legacy of strength, grace, and quiet devotion. An American playing an Englishman, Paul Benedict. After Jenny stepped away from the spotlight, the story of Paul Benedict led audiences into a behind-the-scenes chapter that was both humorous and strangely fascinating. To viewers, Harry Bentley, the awkward yet polite British neighbor, was a source of unforgettable comic moments. But once off set, the first surprise was, this Paul Benedict wasn't British at all. With his flawless accent, refined diction, and timid mannerisms, Bentley seemed like the epitome of British charm. But in reality, Benedict was born in New Mexico and raised in a typical American household. For years, many fans were convinced he held a UK passport, so much so that even Benedict laughed when praised for his perfect British accent. Behind his acting career lay an extraordinary medical story. Benedict suffered from acromegaly, a rare hormonal disorder that caused elongation of the facial bones, resulting in a distinctive appearance with a pronounced jaw and forehead. In fact, a doctor once spotted signs of the condition while watching The Jeffersons on TV and reached out to urge Benedict to seek a medical checkup. The actor later recalled this as a strange blessing of the profession, that television indirectly helped him detect and treat a serious condition, allowing him to live healthier for years to come. Off-screen, Benedict was nothing like the bumbling Bentley. Known for his kindness and thoughtfulness, he was a dedicated stage actor who frequently appeared in beloved films like This Is Spinal Tap and The Addams Family. Younger audiences may also recognize him from his guest role on Seinfeld, where his signature subtle humor continued to shine. Paul Benedict's story is a testament to television's magic, how a fictional character could so fully convince audiences of a noble British background, while the actor himself carried a deeply personal and little-known medical journey. And just like Harry Bentley, Benedict left behind a warm impression, a quirky yet sincere neighbor, both on screen and in real life. A late start, a bittersweet end, Zara Cully. When audiences think of the Jeffersons, many immediately picture Mother Jefferson, the petite woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper tongue, always finding new ways to scold George with unmatched wit. Zara Cully, the actress behind the role, was one of Hollywood's rare stories. She only became a household name at the age of 82. Before that, Cully had spent decades devoted to the stage, even serving as head of the drama department at a college in Florida. But television stardom remained out of reach. It wasn't until Norman Lear cast her as Olivia Mother Jefferson that Zara stepped into TV legend. On screen, her character was both funny and acerbic, providing the perfect foil to George Jefferson. Yet behind the scenes, Cully's health was in steady decline. She suffered from a severe lung condition, which made filming a constant struggle. There were stretches when she had to miss several episodes, forcing writers to adapt storylines around her absence. In 1978, Zara Cully passed away at the age of 86. Her death shocked the entire cast and crew. Rather than recast the role, the production made the poignant decision to write Mother Jefferson's passing into the script, turning it into a heartfelt tribute. The episode that followed became one of the most emotional moments in the Jeffersons' history, as George grappled with a loss that echoed the real-life grief behind the camera. This creative choice immortalized Mother Jefferson, not just as a character, but as the living breath of Zara Cully herself. Looking back, Cully's story is symbolic, a black woman who stayed true to her craft, waiting until her twilight years for her moment in the spotlight. And just as she reached the biggest stage of her life, time allowed her only a brief moment to bask in it. A late start, a bittersweet end, a tale where tragedy and legacy intertwine, leaving behind an indelible mark in the hearts of fans. More behind-the-scenes secrets from the Jeffersons. When people think of the Jeffersons, they often recall the roaring laughter, the witty back and forths, and the now iconic theme song, Movin' On Up. But beneath the glittering surface lies a trove of behind-the-scenes stories. Some surprising, others nearly unbelievable, shared only years later by the cast themselves. When pieced together, these fragments paint a fuller, richer portrait of one of television's most beloved sitcoms. One of the most debated technical mysteries has always been the layout of the Jeffersons' apartment. Sharp-eyed viewers noticed that the positioning of the front door, hallway, and living room made little architectural sense, something that could never work in a real high-rise. Even the cast would joke that the Jefferson home was a Hollywood illusion that could only exist on a soundstage. Rather than irritate viewers, this inconsistency became a beloved inside joke among die-hard fans. Even the theme song carried a story of its own. Jeanette Dubois, who co-wrote and performed Movin' On Up, revealed that she drew inspiration from a dream she held for her mother, a proud upward journey for the Black community. Featuring a gospel choir of over 30 voices, the song transcended its purpose as an opening jingle and became a cultural anthem of aspiration and resilience. Sherman Hemsley, always full of surprises, added another unexpected layer. Off-screen, he was an avid fan of progressive rock, a genre far removed from the funk and soul often associated with black pop culture at the time. Once, while blasting Gentle Giant in the dressing room, he broke into a spontaneous dance. The writers, amused and intrigued, incorporated this into the show as George Jefferson's now famous strut. What viewers assumed was a scripted comedy move was in fact Sherman just being himself. Another lesser-known behind-the-scenes decision, Archie Bunker. The controversial character who introduced the Jefferson family in All in the Family never made an appearance on The Jeffersons. This was no accident. Norman Lear and the producers intentionally cut the cord, allowing George Louise and their new world to stand on its own. It was a bold move signaling that this show wasn't just a spin-off, but a cultural force in its own right. From set design quirks to hidden musical tributes and personal passions that leaked into the script, The Jeffersons was far more than a sitcom. It was a layered tapestry of creativity, courage, and cultural pride. And as these behind-the-scenes secrets continue to emerge, they only deepen the appreciation for a show that helped redefine what was possible on American television. The Goodbye That Never Came, the sudden cancellation of The Jeffersons, 1985. For a sitcom that lasted an impressive 11 seasons, audiences expected a heartfelt final episode, a chance to say goodbye. But with The Jeffersons, that moment never arrived. In July 1985, CBS abruptly announced the cancellation of the show without warning, without a finale, and without even notifying the cast. Sherman Hemsley found out by reading the morning paper. Isabel Sanford heard from friends who called to ask about it. The shock felt like a slap in the face for a team that had devoted over a decade to making The Jeffersons a cultural cornerstone of American television. The disappointment was compounded when the last aired episode, titled Red Robins, turned out to be just another regular story. No farewells, no flashbacks, no breaking the fourth wall to thank the fans. Nothing marked it as the end. Isabel Sanford later reflected, "We deserved a proper goodbye. The audience did too." Her words in a post-cancellation interview still resonate deeply with fans. The true reason for the show's end was declining ratings. Over its 11-year run, The Jeffersons was shuffled through at least 15 different time slots, which made it nearly impossible for loyal viewers to keep up consistently. The rise of newer sitcoms in the 1980s, coupled with changing TV habits, led to a gradual drop in viewership. Still, CBS's decision to abruptly cut the cord without a finale has long been criticized as disrespectful to both cast and fans. Behind the scenes, the cast experienced a mix of emotions: grief, frustration, but also pride. They knew they had made history. Sherman Hemsley once said that even without a final episode, he considered George Jefferson's strut across the living room to be his eternal farewell to the audience. Marla Gibbs joked, "Florence is probably still working in that apartment, just without the cameras." Ironically, The Jeffersons, a show that celebrated upward mobility and never giving up, ended with a cold, quiet fade-out, no closure. But perhaps that's what made it legendary. With no official end, the Jefferson family lived on in the memories of viewers, preserved in a kind of timeless limbo. And maybe in a strange way, that lack of goodbye became the show's most lasting goodbye of all. The Jeffersons ended without an official farewell, yet its legacy continues to echo through every character, every laugh, and every behind-the-scenes secret left by its cast. From Sherman Hemsley's spontaneous dance moves the accidental birth of the now iconic nickname Wheezy, to the lingering regret of a finale that was never filmed. All of it helped cement the show as an irreplaceable icon. If you're eager to keep uncovering untold stories and behind-the-scenes legends of American television, leave a comment and hit subscribe. Even more surprising journeys await you.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.